Hi everyone, Charlie Walker here from the Night Fright restoration team. We're currently on board C-47 Night Fright here in Hangar 6 in Coventry Airport. The team here have been working really hard over the last few months, as they always do. So, the last sort of 2, 3, 4 months really has been spent sort of still concentrating on that sort of structural detail, trying to get all of that detailed work finished off. So essentially the aircraft's, sealed from inside and out. Then what that's all heading towards, is the final paint coat for the aircraft. So the top coat and the markings, which is going to be happening later towards the end of this year and into the new year. So, they've been really busy concentrating on things like, the belly panels, various fairings around the aircraft, and some detailed work inside as well, the cockpit. So the rudder pedals have gone in, everything in the cockpit is pretty much plumbed in now, and we're adding some of those really nice, original, detailed touches, which is what the project's all about, really. As you guys probably hopefully have picked up from following us, it's all about authenticity and trying to be sort of period World War II, 1940s. That's what we're trying to represent. So that's original instruments in the cockpit, original jack boxes, just everything. The idea is you step on board, it's like a time warp. You're going back to what the aircraft would have looked like on the 6th of June 1944. So so much time has been spent searching for original items, trawling eBay, Facebook, various other marketplaces. We've bought and found stuff literally all across the world. There's a huge amount, that's been done already. I mean, where do you start really? I mean, it's the ground up restoration and rebuild of a C-47, which, as you can see, is not a small aircraft. So it's endless. From the beginning of the project, we worked through massive areas of corrosion where we spent month after month just working to get rid of corrosion, which is a pretty thankless task. So you'd see no progress from week to week, month to month, and then gradually things move on a little bit. We reunited the fuselage with the centre section of the aircraft. Then you add a little bit of primer, some green paint, and it changes again. You put the engines and the propellers on. That's another significant change. So there's been many milestones throughout the project, and there'll be many more. But it's it's the detail that people don't necessarily see. You think, it hasn't changed much over the last few months, but you don't understand the hundreds of hours of sort of craft and workmanship that goes into it, and will continue to go into it. So, the idea is that when it's finished, it will be an authentic 6th of June configuration, and hopefully, one of the most authentic examples of C-47 flying in the world. The guys doing the job really full-time at Heritage Air Services, and that's led by Ben Cox, so Ben's lead engineer. He's also a DC-3 pilot, amongst other things, and he's obviously got a team underneath him, Tom Woodhouse, who's particularly involved working with Ben, who helped me find the aircraft in the first instance. So, and then there's a team of probably 4, 5, 6 other individuals, depending on what we're working on at the time. So it's a full-time team here working at Coventry, but also various volunteers around the edge. Neil Jones probably heavily involved as the biggest volunteer, but there's others as well. So a combination of full-time, which is the main physical restoration and rebuild of the aircraft, and then lots of other things around the outside of that. There's two kind of guiding principles of the project really, and the first one is to honour veterans, who fought for our freedom, and the second is to use it as a platform to educate future generations. So, school children, colleges, universities can come and see it, and understand, what the guys went through, in the 1940s. So, to have that many C-47s and DC-3s gathered for the 80th anniversary of D-Day, it's going to be mega. That's the only way I can describe it really. And there's obviously fewer and fewer veterans, around to see these memorials, but each one that goes past, there's fewer, so it's hugely important for us. This is, one of the very reasons why we're doing it. It all goes back to Membury, which is where I've spent the majority of my life growing up, and where our family logistics business, Walker Logistics, is based. And it's situated on the site of the old Membury airfield. So, built by the RAF in 1941 for use by the RAF originally, not used by the RAF, in fact handed over to the Americans. Lots of different squadrons and aeroplanes rotated through Membury, but what is most synonymous with Membury is the C-47 and 436 Troop Carrier Command, of which this aircraft, Night Fright, flew with. So originally I kind of thought to myself, it'd be nice to commemorate in some way what happened at the airfield. Could we find an aircraft that flew from Membury during the 1940s? If we could, let's put it on a pole outside the gate of the airfield, and if someone drives down the road, they kind of know that there's something significant happened there. And Yeah, I guess the rest is history. We managed to find an aircraft, much to our surprise, with help for some individuals. Tom Woodhouse, who I mentioned earlier, a local historian, Roger Day, who's written books about memory. And we ended up buying the aircraft out of a scrapyard in Arkansas in the US in November 2012. And yeah, I suppose the goalposts have shifted significantly from, yeah, let's have it as a gate guardian, to, yeah, let's paint it and make it look a bit better, to actually, let's make it fly, to we stand here today to make it as authentic as possible. So yeah, it's been a constantly sort of evolving project, but yeah, to me, it's all about history, it's about memory, it's about honouring sacrifice and educating future. It's about using Night Fright as a centrepiece to tell a story. So, you know, we want to honour that at Membury. We have plans to have a little museum at Membury. So, you know, the public or anyone that's interested can come and understand, you know, what happened in the local area, the American presence, why it was so significant, and in my view, how it helped to turn the tide of the Second World War. I mean, you know, this aircraft took part in every major airborne mission throughout the Second World War, you know, whether it's Normandy or, you know, Operation Market Garden over Holland. So a huge amount of history, and to me that's everything. That's what this project's about. It's not just being in a position to restore an aircraft that we like it and have some fun with it. Yeah, that's cool, but it's about way more than that. Next year is massive. It's the 80th anniversary of D-Day. That all kicks off with the celebrations with the D-Day Squadron at the end of May, and obviously running into June with Normandy, and then some events after that. So what we've got to do is make sure that we're ready for that, and clearly we have to work backwards in terms of, you know, any sort of test flying we want to do prior to that, and where we need to be leading up to that. So, you know, the idea is to move towards paint towards the end of this year. There's some major bits we can tick off as well, like the attaching of the wings, which is great. Move towards engine runs early next year. Then we've got a period of time to focus on the detail, the cosmetics, the testing in the run up to D-Day 80. We spent a huge amount of time, money and effort restoring the aircraft, so the next thing really is we want people to see it. You know, we want to get it out there, so you know, that's the whole point. So as well as the events in May and June next year, you know, we plan to take part in as many air shows, commemorations, flypasts as we can. So you know, we're already taking bookings for next year for air shows in the UK and Europe. Tremendously exciting. We're going to try and do everything in the right way, and that applies to everything we do, including the flying. So flying in period clothing, you know, making sure that we're as authentic as possible. I'd love to do some really cool things like recreate some of the routes they would have flown during the Second World War to the original drop zones. I'd love eventually to take the aircraft back to the US to fly with some of our friends from the D-Day Squadron. You know, take it to some of the places that are significant in the US, Long Beach, where she was built, for example. So there's a huge amount we can do once we're ready. We could trace the history of this aircraft from the day it was built in Long Beach in California through its entire wartime history, what it did, who it dropped, what gliders it towed, right through to its life post-war, where it had a significant sort of commercial life, carrying passengers, hauling cargo, obviously to the day we bought it in 2012, and then, you know, clearly we've documented the story of the restoration since. We're obviously stood in the main sort of cargo compartment of the aircraft, and you know, as with everything else that we're doing restoration wise, it's all about authenticity. So you know, you can see things here like, you know, the static line obviously that the paratroopers would have hooked up to, and then they would have shuffled down into the cargo door at the back and obviously jumped out, and that's what would have opened the round canopy chute. So all about authenticity. You can see the original windows with the sort of grommets or plugs in them. Yeah, these are where the paratrooper benches would have been, one running the length of the aircraft this side, and another one on the other side. You know, the same goes for the front of the aircraft as well. So, you know, the navigator and radio operator stations are going to be authentic in terms of their presentation. Neil has managed to find all of the original sort of instrumentation and boxes to go in there. So it truly is going to be authentic. In the cockpit, exactly the same. The instrument panel will look as it would have done in period. We obviously have to have some modern equipment, but we're going to carefully sort of hide that, right down to the detail of things like we found the original autopilot, which is a box sort of that shape, which should have been in the center of the panel. So we're going to recess a modern Garmin instrument behind that, but cut the face off the original autopilot so we can plug it over the top when we're at sort of on station at events and air shows. So you know, it's not just period outside, it's period inside in every little detail that we do. And you know, we've been striving to make sure that we're as accurate as we possibly can be. In the front, we're aiming to be as authentic as we are in the back. So in terms of the instrument panel, for example, fully authentic, 1940s period. This is how it would have looked in terms of a layout. The autopilot, which would have been where this hole is here, that's where we've cut the face off the original instrument, and we'll recess the Garmin GPS behind there, right through to things like junction boxes and jack boxes. We really have studied the manuals, the drawings, period photographs of Night Fright and other aircraft to make sure it's truly authentic. And when we're flying the aircraft, we're going to be in period sort of World War II flying gear, so no modern, no mechs flying suits or anything like that. This is all about telling a story. I mean, these are obviously Night Fright's original wings, or at least one of them is. We think it had some kind of an incident during its commercial life, so one of them was changed. But anyway, this gives you an idea of scale. So we have essentially completely rebuilt the wings, which I'm not sure if it's been done before. I'm sure it has, but it's not a small task. So the underside of each wing was completely de-skinned, so all of this aluminium you see on the top was removed. That's probably a 3 to 4 week process just to drill those off, which is mammoth. What that then does is give you the opportunity to inspect the internals of the wings and work out if there's any corrosion, if there's any other defects that need replacing. And of course there was. It's Night Fright, it's a restoration project, there's always work to do. So we sort of rectified all of the defects. There's still a few little bits left to tidy up before they're installed, but it's a massive task, but glad we did it. These are gonna last a lifetime now, so just shows you the detail that we've had to go to, the amount of work involved, the man hours, and just the intricacies of a project like this. But whilst we were de-skinning the wings, we discovered some history. We found some old markings from when Night Fright flew with Piedmont Airlines post-war. So glad we did it. A huge cost, huge effort, but well worth it in the end. The team have been working really hard on sort of the internal and external structure over the last 2 months, as I sort of mentioned in the lead up to applying the paint. So there's a huge amount of detail that goes into that. When you start thinking about painting, you start seeing little bits that need sort of tidying up. So behind me, the guys have been working on the belly panels underneath the aircraft, which it doesn't sound like a big job, but I can tell you that it's hours and hours of work to get things like that done. And behind me again, they've been working on some of the fairings on top of the wing. Again, just hours and hours of man input that need to go into machining and fine-tuning those. So a lot of the hard work, the system work has been done. So like the hydraulic system's finished, the oil system, the fuel system. You can see behind me, obviously the engines have been overhauled. We had 3 engines overhauled in the US, shipped back to the UK. The props are on now, which is another huge visual change. The windows are in, be it the cockpit windows, the windows in the cargo compartment, the fuselage. So 99% of the details done. It's just sort of fine-tuning now as we work up towards completion. So painting being the first stage, then the wings on, the engine runs, control surfaces and rigging, then we really are into the cosmetics. And it sounds simple when I describe it like that, but it absolutely isn't. They're going to be working flat out over the next few months, but it's for a great cause. It's for D-Day 80. It's a chance to fly with our friends from the D-Day Squadron, and we can't wait to join up with them, being the sort of their friend from the UK, so to speak.